Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today we're talking about that April Nintendo Direct. As part of the Switch 2 reveal last Thursday, at the end of that trailer, Nintendo knew what they needed to do, and they teased a Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct for April 2nd, 2025. Now, in that moment, a lot of people, myself included, realized they don't know how Japan formats their dates. A lot of people were watching that trailer on the Japanese website, and they were saying like, oh, February 4th, February 4th. Even in my live chat at the time, people were losing their minds. February 4th. Unfortunately, April 2nd. So a little bit more of a wait than I would have liked here, right? So we're going from, currently it's January 19th through the 2nd. That's like, what, 10 weeks or so that we have to wait for this Nintendo Direct, making it by far the longest amount of time in between a Direct announcement and it actually happening. It is very similar to what happened back in 2016, where the Switch was revealed. A week after the Switch was revealed, they announced the 2017 presentation, but the key difference there is that was not a Direct. That was just a presentation, but the timeline is very similar. I believe that was like 9 weeks or so in between. So we're looking at a pretty similar thing here, where we had the reveal of the console, and about 2.5 or so months later, we're getting what will likely be a massive blowout. Now, there's been some discussion for sure of whether or not this presentation will be that. Will this be as big of a blowout for the Nintendo Switch 2 as it was for the Switch back in 2017? I think the simple and best answer is probably, right? Like, this is probably going to be an absolutely massive Nintendo Direct. Will it live up to that, though? Will it be better than the 2017 presentation? That's kind of what I want to talk about today. We're not going to go over specific predictions, but just the idea that this could be the best Direct we ever watched, right? As someone who's been watching Nintendo Directs live since 2013, I don't think it's that unreasonable to say that this could very well be the best Nintendo Direct presentation we've ever had, because if they're mimicking the Switch 1 rollout down to literally the weeks in between the reveal to major blowout of games, I think it stands to reason they're going to try to go hard as well when it comes to the games they show early on. And although this is a separate video I want to make, I think we can kind of look at the April airing of this presentation. You can look at the tour dates for the Switch 2 experience, and you can kind of assume that the Switch 2 is probably releasing in either late May or June, which, to be fair, is what rumors have indicated for a while now. So we're probably looking at a June launch for this console. And if that is the case, if this is all true, this should be a pretty massive showcase, because not only do they need to detail us on the console itself, explain the mouse con, explain the price, the release date, like all that, all the console stuff we're dying to know. They need to show all of that. We need to know the entire first year lineup of games, right? The 2017 presentation had a ton of first-party Nintendo games, as well as a lot of third-party games, either announced on stage or through a sizzle reel. And considering where Nintendo was back then versus where they are now, at the very least, on the third-party front, I think it's pretty fair to expect significantly more third-party games to be a part of this showcase. Once again, even if it is a Switch 2 sizzle reel, or even if it is games announced on Twitter the same day, the following day, whatever, there's going to be more games announced for the Switch 2 in a short period of time than the Switch had back in 2017. And I think when we're asking ourselves, will this be better than the 2017 presentation, I think the easy answer, maybe not in terms of like the quality of the games shown, right? That's going to be up to the eye of the beholder. I think in terms of the presentation itself, this will almost certainly be better because it's a Nintendo Direct. This is not going to be a live presentation. This is going to be a very nice, polished, pre-recorded package that Nintendo has become known for here. And while I don't think it'll have the same headlines that a current Nintendo Direct does, where they're going rapid fire through a bunch of games that you don't even have time to like think about it, I'm sure they'll be a little bit slower than that. It won't have the headlines per se. It is still a Nintendo Direct. It will still be a pre-packaged presentation, and so from that aspect, I think it will be better, because the 2017 presentation had a lot of like weird on-stage translation errors and awkward moments, and the pacing was a little weird. So it's not going to have that issue. I would hope so anyway. But yeah, I mean, once again, not doing predictions right now, but kind of, I guess. The 2017 presentation, by my counts, in it and around it, I guess we'll say, had 9 first-party Nintendo games announced. 1-2 Switch, ARMS, Super Mario Odyssey, which to be fair, we had seen before. Splatoon 2, same thing there. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Fire Emblem Warriors, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Snipper Clips, as well as Breath of the Wild being shown there. I'm counting that towards my 9. So there were 9 Nintendo Switch first-party games shown in that presentation. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did not get a trailer until I think it was just on YouTube that night, but it was in the sizzle reel. It was shown a lot in the presentation. And then same thing with Snipper Clips, a much smaller title that was in the sizzle reel. So there were 9 first-party games, and by my count, interestingly, there were only a handful of third parties, and some of them were Japan only, like Dragon Quest 10 and 11 were talked about here, but the big ones that were announced for the first time were Shin Megami Tensei 5, or specifically the SMT Anniversary Project, as we knew it back then with that little teaser, Octopath Traveler, Project Octopath Traveler, Skyrim was officially confirmed here, as well as FIFA, but then you also had Suda51 come out and kind of talk about Travis striking again or whatever, right? Like that was the really weird parts with the bad translation. So there were more third-party things here. It just wasn't presented that well, I think. So we're looking at like 9 first-party games being shown and announced here, but also like really 4, I would say, major third-party things. But then it gets weird because you go to that sizzle reel and there's just a ton of stuff there in there. Minecraft Story Mode, Steep from Ubisoft, which never came out, Has Been Heroes, Street Fighter 2, Bomberman R was an exclusive that was announced through a sizzle reel. So there were a lot of third-party games. They just weren't really on stage, and I wonder if we'll see a similar thing here, especially when we're talking about all of these like PS4, PS5 ports coming over. Are they really going to give stage time to something like Persona 3 Reload? If it were any other Direct, I would say, yeah, there's certainly time for Persona 3 Reload. But as it stands, when we're talking about late ports from third parties, I just feel like there's a very few that I feel like are deserving of having a proper on-screen major direct presence at this showcase. You know, I think of like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. Those would certainly be there. Metaphor ReFantazio, I would say over Persona 3 Reload just because it is a newer thing. Atlas probably wants to push that a little bit harder. And then you also have stuff like Elden Ring and maybe Cyberpunk. But even that I feel like might get designated to a sizzle reel. Cyberpunk. Elden Ring I definitely think would be one of like the major like on stage, or not on stage, but on screen reveals, not part of a sizzle reel here. But I think what really gets me excited moving into the Switch 2 era here with Nintendo is that we're likely going to start seeing more third-party games actually get announced at Nintendo presentations, and maybe this will be the start of it, maybe it won't be, but I think, 4 years from now, you're going to see like major Capcom and Square Enix games get announced, not just stuff like Octopath, but like a Final Fantasy game, that's very possible. Persona 6, we'll talk about that in just a second. Persona 6 is rumored to be coming out soon. Maybe we see it in the Switch 2 Direct, right? Like, that is definitely possible. But before we talk more about third parties, let's kind of talk more about the first-party lineup and what Nintendo needs to announce this year in this presentation to really convince people to buy it. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Switch 2 is likely releasing in June or around that time frame, right? It's not going to be holiday. I think we can all agree on that at this point. So, if it's releasing in June, and they usually release 1 game per month, they'll probably have 2 at launch, so we'll say that's in June. They'll need to show at least 7 first-party games here if they want to keep that 1 release per month cadence, which I think actually isn't that unreasonable, especially when you consider, Mario Kart, we already kind of know about that now. That will obviously get a huge trailer announcing the title, showing whatever gimmicks there are. Mario Kart will have a huge showing here, especially since that is almost certainly the launch title for this console. And then if Prime 4 isn't out by then, if it is truly going to be a Switch 2 cross-gen kind of thing, Prime 4 they probably show here as well. So that really just leaves 5 more first-party games they would need to announce in one show. And at that point, I mean, the sky is the limit. This is where the video kind of turns into maybe predictions, but like 3D Mario, I think we're all in agreement. Maybe since Mario Kart's releasing this year, it wouldn't come out this year, maybe this is like a March 2026 thing, but 3D Mario, I feel like we're going to see this thing here. Monolith Soft's next game, I would say also definitely on the table. Animal Crossing or Splatoon 4 from EPD5. One of those has to be ready to go in 2025. Next Level Games. It's been a while since they shipped Strikers. That was obviously a smaller project. Could it be time to see Luigi's Mansion 4? EPD4 will almost certainly have a new IP for launch. Some sort of maybe mouse con gimmick thing where you put in your Switch 2 Joy-Con on the table and slide them around. They'll have a new weird kind of demonstration IP for the the launch of the console, like they always do, 1-2 Switch, Nintendo Land, Wii Sports, there will be something like that there. So maybe it's a new IP, maybe it's Switch Sports Resorts, I don't know. But something from them, I would say, is almost guaranteed to show up here, and that would likely be a launch title alongside Mario Kart's Camelot's next game after Mario Golf Super Rush. That's one that I feel like we're definitely overdue for. This is the longest time they've gone without releasing a game, but Camelot is one that I don't know if that would necessarily be here. Maybe that's even still a Switch 1 game. We'll have to wait and see. Something Zelda related. I think if you're marketing your new console, you're going to want to have something Zelda here. I know a lot of people think Ocarina of Time Remake. I think Ocarina of Time Remake is going to happen. I just don't know when. Could it be a new Warriors game? The Switch 2017 presentation had Fire Emblem Warriors. Could we see a new Zelda Warriors here announced for Switch 2 for maybe later this holiday? I think that's totally possible. And frankly, if we got even half of what I just said, that would already make it like the best direct ever, because while Mario Kart and Metroid wouldn't necessarily be new things at that point, like new announcements, right? It's still going to be very, very exciting to see more of them, but then you also have at least 3 or 4 more things on top of that. But like I said, if they want to have that one release a month cadence, you'll probably see 7 first-party games in the showcase. The Switch 2017 presentation, once again, had 9, if you count old stuff like Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But also, the Switch came out 3 months earlier. It came out in March, so there was more time to fill. I guess it's also very possible that they do let's say a June or July Direct this year after the April showcase, and they could still announce more there. I mean, in June of 2017, Pokken Tournament Deluxe was announced for Switch, as well as Mario plus Rabbids for the same year. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that this April Nintendo Direct blows off the doors of every first-party game that will release in 2025 for Nintendo. However, I do think that given that this is a new console generation, it would be wise of them to. I think they really should. Unless there's like more remasters, like let's say Breath of the Wild 4K or whatever is like a November or December game. Yeah, you can announce that later. You don't want to, confuse the messaging of like, well, it's backwards compatible, but also we're selling you the same game again. That's something you do in a separate showcase, maybe even just on Twitter or something. But if we're talking new games, I think they should just announce every single game releasing in 2025 in this presentation. Maybe if there's something smaller in like a September Direct, maybe, I guess, but if we're talking Animal Crossing or Splatoon, 3D Mario, a new Monolith Soft game, EPD4's new IP, or Switch Sports, like, these are all things you would want to announce in April and promote throughout the entire year. So I feel like this is the one. This is the big presentation that we've been waiting years for, and that's so exciting. I'm not saying the past couple of years of Nintendo has been boring by any stretch of the imagination. 2024, I know some people say is like the worst year of Switch. I love 2024 because it has a bunch of weird stuff like Another Code and like Emio and This Ocean, and Mario and Luigi came back, and we got a 2D Zelda starring Zelda. Like, that's all really cool. And then 2023 had the release of Tears of the Kingdom, and Mario Wonder was announced. But it's been a while since we've been talking about the big boys, right? The new Mario Kart, the new Animal Crossing, the new 3D Mario. And that's just so exciting to think that we are literally only like 2.5 months away from likely seeing all of these things, if not most of them. So yeah, in terms of first-party stuff, I think this is pretty much a slam dunk. This is going to be the best Direct that we've ever gotten. But I also think that third parties are going to have a major role in this as well. Like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be tons of ports, sure, but I think new releases are going to start being announced in Nintendo showcases as well. Persona 6 I mentioned, that's rumored to be imminent. Maybe that shows up in an Xbox thing. Maybe that shows up at a PlayStation State of Play. Maybe Atlas just does it on their own. But if Persona 6 is truly releasing in 2025 or even like early 2026, it's got to be announced someday, man. Even though it feels like this mythical thing, Persona 6 is, I think, certainly on the table for a reveal here. Square Enix has had long-rumored releases of Final Fantasy IX as well as Tactics Remake. These are remakes, but still new, I would say, more major titles from Square Enix. I think these are both, at least one of them is extremely likely. Final Fantasy IX, I would lean being the most likely here, so that's one that I think would probably show up here. Capcom, Ace Attorney 7, maybe they even have, I don't know if they would announce Resident Evil 9 at a Nintendo thing. I think that's more Sony. That's more Sony territory for sure. Those games are very cutting edge, but something like Ace Attorney 7 or maybe even something smaller like a new Mega Man, that could be here as well. Koei Tecmo is almost certainly cooking another Nintendo Warriors game. So like I mentioned earlier, maybe that's Zelda. I hope it's Xenoblade, but it's probably going to be a Zelda game. That's fine. Give me more Hyrule Warriors 1 energy. Give me that proper crossover of all the games. Again, that'd be very cool. So you'll probably see that from them, but also, I mean, maybe some more stuff as well. I mean, Koei Tecmo releases a lot of games. They release a lot of niche stuff like Atelier, but they also have a lot of new stuff coming. Like, there's rumored to be a Ninja Gaiden game right now to pop up at the Xbox showcase. That's something that for sure could pop up again, maybe, at a Nintendo event. And then, yeah, I'm just really curious how they're going to handle all of these ports and remasters. There was an interesting post on Blue Sky from Jason Schreier from Bloomberg saying, like, yeah, the reason they announced the Switch 2 randomly one morning in January is that so third parties can start talking about their plans for the console. And as of right now, recording this on Sunday, there have not been any third parties that have really said anything. Ubisoft tweeted out that they love the Nintendo Switch 2, they're in love with the Switch 2 or whatever, but there have been no major third-party games announced here, and I wonder if that starts happening at the Xbox showcase next week, or are they still just waiting? I really feel like for some developers, it'd be wise to start announcing things early. You know, there's rumors of Gotham Knights coming to Switch 2. You should announce that earlier than later, or sooner than later, Warner Bros., because people aren't going to care about that when they're seeing Gotham Knights next to the new 3D Mario, right? You want to have your own day for that, so don't wait until the presentation for that. But even in general, like most old ports, like I said, there are a few that I think can stand out. Elden Ring, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. Like, there are a couple things that can definitely have their own pop and still get enough attention during the Switch 2 April Directs. But a lot of this stuff you should probably announce beforehand, and if not, then what? Is it just going to be in a sizzle reel in the Direct? You know, like I mentioned, Cyberpunk. I mean, Ubisoft is rumored to be bringing like 30 games to the Switch 2. Are we really going to have Assassin's Creed Mirage show up and get like a full 90-second trailer in the April Nintendo Direct? I doubt it. Maybe AC Shadows, because that's a newer game, but I'm really, really curious how these third parties are going to be managed and shown, especially in regards to their older content. So it's going to be a massive, massive Nintendo Direct. There are so many questions, but I am so excited. I wish it was sooner. I wish it wasn't 2.5 months away, but that's just going to build the anticipation even more. And of course, I will be covering it, streaming it when it does happen. Before then, we should be getting a February Direct for Switch 1. That is the current rumor. It also just makes sense because we don't really know what's going on with Switch 1 this year. There will also be a Pokemon Presents, so there will be stuff to talk about regarding Switch 1 games until then. And you know, maybe the February Direct still says something, right? Like maybe Metroid Prime 4 is confirmed cross-gen there. I'm sure they'll talk about Switch 2 a little bit, even if they're not announcing a ton of games. They could say, hey, Metroid Prime 4, Switch 2 game. So that'll be interesting. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of this April Nintendo Direct? What are your expectation levels at? For me, listen, I know people are going to comment being like, oh, you're expecting too much, man. The hype train is here, and it's getting ready to take off. So if you want to take it, you gotta sign up now, because this is gonna be a legendary Nintendo Direct. This is gonna be the best Nintendo Direct or Nintendo presentation that we've had since 2017, at least in terms of new announcements. Absolutely. So I'm very excited, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch 2 news, reviews, coverage, all that fun stuff, speculation, theories. Check out my Twitter at BoTalksGames as well, and my other YouTube channel where I do collecting content as well as more reviews and stuff. That is at It's Amiibo. That'll be linked down below. Until next time, folks. Peace.